There's a lot of people hesitant in the current market, right? They're waiting for interest rates to keep dropping, generally scared of debt, scared of how to use leverage, such a big commitment buying a property. What would you say to people around that kind of overcoming fear when it comes to property, being a property investor?
I just say enjoy paying the rent. Yeah. No, those sort of people make fantastic tenants. You know, and they'll pay $100,000 more for the properties that I'm buying this week.
Welcome to Checks and Balances, brought to you by Partners Life. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And today we've got the man himself, Steve Goodey, here to talk about how he did 3,000 homes, transformed, sold, or traded, and how do property investors do it.
We're back in your life. Steve, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
So Steve, 3,000 homes.
Those are rookie numbers.
You think about the Kiwi dream and go like, I want to buy a house, maybe an investment property or two. Is that how it started for you, or?
Well, I mean, that wasn't this week. You know, this is a career thing. You know, I first started buying houses when I was like 18, 19 years old.
So about 3 years ago?
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah. You know, eventually everybody gets to a point where the banks start saying, you know, calm down there, fella. We need to show some revenue. So obviously I started selling some of the houses that I'd bought to prove value, and then a property trader was born.
Yeah.
And through the heady days of the sort of 90s and early 2000s, we were buying houses for $70,000, $80,000, spending 10 or 12 on the renovation and making a $10,000 or $12,000 profit. And that becomes quite addictive.
Yeah, well, yeah, I bet. Where, just because the headline's buying them for 70 or 80 grand, obvious question is, where in the country were these houses?
Some of them are in South Auckland.
People don't want to hear that.
I'm sorry,
you can't get a litter box for that these days.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but I mean, you know, we all see the stat. You know, every out of 9 years, property doubles.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to extrapolate that out. So if you're buying a $1.2 million place in South Auckland now, that's a bit average. That's going to be a $7-8 million house in our lifetime. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I find that really interesting because when we talk to people about that, they can't wrap their heads around it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of excuses like, oh, it's this driving up the price, or this driving up the price, or this. Yep, there are some drivers, but to be honest, most of it's just inflation.
Yeah. The double in property value is not just all like cream, right?
No, not
your
at all.
cost of living have gone up. So when you first got back into property, which I think was 1999, I'd love to see the outfit you had on at the time, Steve. What drew you to property at that point?
I'd had a career progression where I sort of logically looked at what it was I was doing. I first started in hospitality with pizzas and running, you know, franchise pizza joints. And then I started working for Pacific Retail Group, and I was selling more expensive products, fridges, TVs, appliances for a few $1,000s. And then I made a very, very nice profit, something around my annual income in a couple of weeks worth of work out of a piece of real estate. And it clicked with me. It's the biggest want and need of anybody's life. And if I can get good at this, then I can be, you know, pretty wealthy for the rest of my life.
Yep. And I'm sure after 3,000 houses, you've got pretty good in terms of spotting a deal, knowing what to looking for. And when you're working through those renos, that first property or two that you did, I'm sure looking back, there was probably some things you could have done better.
Oh, absolutely. I think the art of being a good property investor is becoming more and more lazy. The things that you will do and things that you won't do. And still to this day, people think that I'm trying to buy absolutely wrecked houses.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I'm looking for low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I want stuff that's just cosmetically distressed that I can just do a little bit to. But more and more now, I'm highlighting properties for other people to do the work on. And so really these are just trades or contemporaneous settlements.
Yeah, I love the term cosmetically distressed. That somehow we talked about James like that in the office as well.
Yeah.
That's tough, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. Mate, you've been having digs at me all morning.
Yeah. So, I mean, 3,000 homes, I think that stat came in the year in 2020. What have you been up to for the last 4 years?
Well, really, the market's been very interesting, hasn't it? The market slowed. And also, you get to a certain point in your investing where you've come from absolutely nothing and you've got something. And your need to have heaps more is less than my need to actually go backwards at all. And so when I say you get lazy, you also get very fussy about what you're going to put into your portfolio. So early on in your investing, and I think as a young property investor, you want to have a large portfolio.
Yeah.
But later on, you realize what that actually means. It means maintenance issues. It means management issues.
Cash flow.
I never wanted to have 200 properties and the management issue that comes with. And I've got friends who have 200 houses. So really, I started cutting back the low income ones and the cheaper houses and just doing a run to quality. And I think that, if we really want to make fantastic money out of real estate in this country, one of the call cries there is to buy quality assets and own them for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
It's not actually that much harder than that at all.
Yeah. And do you see people making that mistake often where they're, potentially young and they're like, it's a land grab, right? And they're like, just get me the cheapest thing as quick as I can.
Correct. And they're not investors, they're collectors.
Yeah.
It's not monopoly. It really isn't. And every asset, every house in your portfolio needs to be there for a specific purpose. It really does.
Yeah.
It's either there for, capital gain, or it's going to double, or this land value, and this is the unitary plan Auckland thing, or it's there for cash flow to give you more money so you can buy more property.
Yeah.
Yeah, a big part of your what you're focused on now is helping other people, right? And that kind of mentorship element. I want to talk about, did you have any mentors early on in your journey?
Sort of, yeah, I did. There was a couple of guys, way back in the day when I was in my late teens and 20s, and they had cool cars and they always had lots of money and they did great stuff. And you didn't really see it, but in the back end they were ducks. They were pedaling really fast, and they'd all held or had made their money in property assets. And I think there's no new ideas in the world. Everybody just replicates what works. And you find somebody that has a vibe or seems to think the way that you do, and you look at how they make their money and whether they seem to enjoy it or not. And you guys have got some great people around you as well. And you look at those people and go, I think I could do that.
Yeah. And
you start replicating that. Because, as I said, no new ideas in the world.
Yeah, and I love that point there where you're like, they've got the stuff, they've got the things, they've clearly got the money, but in the background, boy, are they pedaling hard. Property is not passive. It's not an easy game, and I think that's a trap that people fall into, is they think it's just buy the house, it all works out, get the money, get the McLaren.
Absolutely, and the only passive income is writing a Christmas carol. That's it. Every year, make some money. Thanks, Mariah Carey rubbing
Absolutely nailed it.
But property investment, once it's freehold and once it's paid down, is way more passive than a lot of other ways that you could earn your income.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a reason why most of the millionaires and billionaires in the world either make or hold their money in real estate. We know all this. It's all obvious stuff. And I feel for this new generation coming through, because the number one hardest thing in the world is saving that first deposit. Closely matched by the number two hardest thing, which is saving the second deposit. Because you've got to find 40% equity for the next one. But it's all there for them. I came up in a period where I'm going to age myself really badly here. Cell phones didn't exist.
Yeah.
I came up in a period where the internet wasn't a thing. There was no such thing as Trade Me.
Yeah.
I would literally get the property papers.
In the paper,
and you would, fold this thing out and you would ring up. It was like a 5-digit phone number for the local real estate agent, and you'd ring them up and go, well, tell me about this house.
Yeah. And then like the funny thing of that is the open homes, you probably got to plot that out on a map.
Yeah, I quickly got to the point where I figured that open homes were for novices and I just didn't do them anymore.
Yeah.
I ran a very different system.
Yeah.
I would ring up a real estate agent and tell them what it was I was looking for and what I wanted, and ask them to bring that to me.
Yeah.
And so we got all the fresh stuff and promised the agent that you would resell the property through them and, buy their loyalty, and they would always come back to you with the good stuff.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'm just still thinking about Mariah Carey's Christmas songs are easier way to make money than being a property investor.
What do you reckon, Jimmy? Should we give it a go?
I think
you and I we've sung on this podcast before. James loves singing. It doesn't mean that singing loves him.
Yeah.
I think our producers like, no, do not sing.
I think it's about $6 million a year she makes from all
at least.
Yeah.
Anyway,
moving on. I want to talk about like the property investor today. So you see a lot of people, I'm sure they're kind of hitting you up being like, Steve, I see what you've done. I want to build a property portfolio.
Yep.
What are the biggest mistakes property investors are making in 2024?
Not doing things on purpose. Most property investors in this country are accidental investors.
Yeah.
We can't sell the old house, but we want to buy the new house, so we'll just rent the old one out. Or it was mum's house and we inherited it. Or I might be contentious here, but let's have a go at this one. I went to a seminar and I got sold a townhouse in South Auckland.
Yeah.
And the value hasn't popped up the way I hoped it would because there's 200 of them within 4 blocks. Not having that strategy in place and not really thinking about it that way. So my opinion is that there's 2 types of investors in this country, and I'm just going to paste everybody into one group or the other. Entrepreneurial investors, I will go down to Mitre 10 every weekend and I will buy a paintbrush and I will do the thing. Or automatic millionaires. And now these are people who earn great money, work for a living for somebody else, and want to buy one house every 2 years for 10 years and then stop.
Yeah.
And they will be millionaires. They will be automatically millionaires. And it'll be not very sexy, but they will achieve what they want to achieve, but they won't get there as quickly or go as long as somebody who actually wants to get involved and actually has a true passion for it.
Yeah. I think about like, say the townhouse example, almost as like investing into like an index share portfolio, and you're just tracking the market versus like if you're renovating, you're more of like a trader in terms of the and now I would say probably a property trader, while still a lot of them would fail, has a bigger chance than a share trader. But that's how I think about the two in my head.
And then you've got the regional difference, obviously, because Auckland is different to everywhere else in New Zealand. Auckland Unitary Plan came in and it went, the house is really just there to pay off the land. The land is the only real valuable part. And since then, Wellington's come in with its version of the Unitary Plan, which is actually a much higher density than what you've got here in Auckland. But we have 2 million, 3 million less people. So we just don't have the population to make the newly developed land stock worth enough to have it compare with Auckland.
Interesting. And what about when it comes to, so there's a lot of people hesitant in the current market, right? They're waiting for interest rates to keep dropping, or even though they've already dropped.
The prices to be consistently going up.
Yeah, they're worried about employment at the moment. A lot of businesses doing redundancies, and then maybe even not just the current market, but just generally scared of debt, scared of how to use leverage, such a big commitment buying a property. What would you say to people around that kind of overcoming fear when it comes to property, being a property investor?
I just say enjoy paying the rent. No, those sort of people make fantastic tenants. Those people will also wait until the conversation around in the Uber or around the barbecue is all back to, and they'll pay $100,000 more for the properties that I'm buying this week. Everybody knows you need to be counter-cyclical, and everybody knows we're at the bottom of the market. Interest rates are dropping. Things are starting to move along and start to happen. Everybody knows that property will never go to zero because everybody needs to live somewhere.
It's interesting because it's really easy for people to say, the Warren Buffett, like buy low, sell high. Buying low generally means that it's not a great time out there in the market. Everyone will be telling you not to buy. Everyone will be like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? You could lose your job next week. You could just, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling everyone to go out if you can't afford it and buy 100 houses. I can see him nodding. But it's quite a crazy thing to try and get people when we're assessing people's incomes and affordability, and we're like, you should do it now. Like you should go out and do it. And they're like, I'll just wait until summer next year. I'm like, everyone else is waiting until summer next year, and summer next year it might pop off. Well, if
we're just waiting for this perfect storm that never arrives. And what they really need to do is they need to go, can I afford it now? Do I have some financial resilience that's going to help me out if bad things happen? And bad things do happen. Don't get me wrong. And this is I'm always continually puzzled where people go, well, I have more than just property assets. I have art and I have watches and I have cars. And I'm sorry, but any half decent downturn, all of that stuff goes down by half. 3 tenants leave, interest rates go through the roof, and then your financial resilience is starting to look really, really rocky.
Now, you say that, Steve, but I swear somebody just sold a banana taped to a wall for, what was that, $3 million? $6 million. So there's always money.
You're saying there's money in the fruit and veg game?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but okay, but let's play a little bit of game of do as I do, not as I say then. So I also went down to my garage 12 months ago, and there was a $500,000 Ferrari down there that I'd bought when interest rates were at 3%. And then when interest rates got to 7%, the Ferrari went. No ego, financial resilience, responsibility, put it into more houses.
What was the Ferrari? Just
Portofino. The old man Ferrari, sorry.
How did the Ferrari market hold up going from
badly? I lost money, but you expect that. That's why you buy houses, so you have the resilience to buy stupid Ferraris.
I've got a balance sheet where it may be a a frivolous decision that I've made, but it's not going to sink the ship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Before we move on, we talk all the time about planning and growing our wealth, but protecting that wealth is just as important. That's why having the right insurance in place can help when life goes unexpectedly.
And that's why this episode is brought to you by Partners Life, a New Zealand operated award-winning insurance provider with over 300,000 Kiwis insured and 89% of claims paid.
Partners Life understand that having some insurance is better than having no insurance. They have flexible and personalized solutions for any budget or situation.
Check out their website in our show notes below.
So, Steve, you've been doing this for like over 25 years. You look at where we are, you've seen lots of markets, you've seen the ups, the downs, the GFC, where we are right now. Where do you think we are at the moment?
I do think that we are absolutely at the bottom, if not a little past the bottom.
Yeah.
I think that Adrian Orr, Reserve Bank, have been very slow in reacting, but I understand that they had a problem with inflation. I think that ultimately we have bottomed out, and we're probably 3 or 4 months ahead of where we actually think we are, because you can only really look back on it. I think that we've had a slight glut and a slight oversupply in some areas for real estate. I know that the absolute peak of my market in Wellington, there was 900 properties on the market. There's now 2,500. So if you imagine, like, if interest rates are going to drop a couple of percent, inflation's under control, there's a massive supply of properties and available housing. Why is now not the holy grail time to dip a toe in? Just pull open Trade Me, start having a look, make some calls.
And I don't think we're at, if 12's at the top, 3's on the way down, 6 is at the bottom. I don't think we're at 6. I think we're at 7. Because the official cash rate has started to come down, I think the property market is already starting to come back up. And sentiment, maybe not in dollar value, but the sentiment has changed.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think that, if you're thinking about getting in on it, if you wait another 6 months, I think we're going to be further up. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we absolutely will, but it's also a speed of market thing. We had a double boom.
Yeah.
We were heading into a boom, and then we had a false COVID boom where they pumped all this money.
Sugar high.
And then we had a bust that actually happened really quickly. Wellington went down 25%, Auckland about 19 or something. And so the comeback from that, the recovery, could take 7 or 8 or 9 years. It could be a real nice slow burn, which is my favorite market.
Yeah.
Predictable.
Why is that your fit?
Predictable.
Yeah.
No shocks.
Yeah.
Nobody likes a market like this. It's scary. Makes me nervous.
Yeah. Those 2021 returns, man, I hope we never get that again.
It's not good for anybody.
No.
And then the feedback system wasn't good as well. We've watched Sharesies or Hatch or whatever, and you watch your shares go up and down. And then we had One Roof and homes.co.nz. And I was watching some of my properties go up $100,000 a month in value. And everybody thinks they're rich. That's when the Ferrari turned up.
Yeah.
Nobody's
with a 3% interest rate.
To be fair, I do love a Portofino.
The obvious question to me in terms of how quickly the market goes back is, supply of housing, and I think it'd be really interesting the start of next year what happens more on the supply of housing. Interest rates have become more attractive. To me, it's to do much more with the economy and going, how much pain are we actually in? Our business is going to be doing more redundancy rounds next year. You look at a market like Wellington and you go, that employment market, the ripple effect out, that's the part that makes me go, is it going to, opposed to maybe property prices jumping 10% next year, is it going to be a little bit slower than we think?
Oh, man. 3 or 4 different thoughts on that one. Firstly, a lot of places are closing down. There is a lot of redundancies, but a lot of it, in all honesty, if we're going to be brutally honest, is dead wood that's being cut.
Yeah.
It's things that have been tracking along that particular way for a long period of time and needed to change. Additionally, if you are tracking the economy that closely and linking that to your investing, then you're being reactionary.
Yeah.
You don't have the financial resilience you thought you would have, because you should be buying a house or two every year. And really, what is your financial plan if your entire financial plan is based on, God, I hope the economy goes up 10% next year?
Yep.
Because it's not going to.
Incredibly.
It's going to go up 5 or 6 or 7, and then it's going to go up 10, and then it's going to go up 2. If you're following it that closely and that's the reason why you're not investing, then you're gambling, not investing.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, I really like that. And I also think to that point, you think about what we were saying at the start of the year, the OCR will slowly start to trickle down, while in in history, that's not what happened, right? It goes up, then it comes down pretty quick. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think towards the end of next year, debt to income ratios will start to slow down the growth in the market a little bit. And I actually predict that as debt to income ratios start to hit, second tier lenders will get a boost as people look for a way to get around the debt to income ratio limits. And I was talking to Matt about this on a podcast the other day, Matt Harris on the accounting side, is I think that will be, look through companies and trusts were great and they weren't so great. Now a little bit great again. I think because you're doing non-triple CFA lending, companies and trusts will be back in vogue because you'll be buying at second tier lenders and refinancing back to main banks. I think debt to income ratios are going to hit at the end of next year.
I don't disagree, but I also believe that the economy has to improve quite a bit before DTIs become an issue for most investors. And I think that if you get to a point where 6 times borrowing, for instance, is holding you back from lending, you're going to become more economical with your portfolio.
Yeah.
You're going to look at your 10 properties and you're going to go, that one's a bit of a dog. It's not actually returning what I thought it was. I'm going to exit that one because I can buy something better with the same money. And the market has to get quite a bit better for that to become an issue.
And then, so do you think at a macro level that will kind of change what investors have been buying? Because traditionally for the last couple of years, and it's probably mainly to do with the tax, they've been going for those new builds, or kind of 2021 onward, that new build townhouse, you get slightly better tax treatment. Do you think that'll shift it a bit more towards those cash flow focused properties?
I think it will, but I think more realistically, investors are kind of lazy, and I think it'll actually push people out of real estate. I think it'll push people into dividends and cash and for God's sake, crypto and and in essence gambling.
Yeah. I love that you've put crypto in the same category as gambling, because that's how I think of it.
Well, do you know why crypto goes up or goes down?
I can't. Every time I ask, I'm like, "What does it do?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, mate, it just goes up." And I'm like, "No, explain to me what the thing does." And I'm not smart enough to do it, so I don't.
If you don't understand it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane.
Let's not have a crypto podcast. Steve, I mean, we're talking about like OCR dropping, interest rates dropping. I'm just keen in terms of your business and people reaching out to you. Have you started to see an uptick of more investors reaching out?
Not really, no, because it takes people a bit of a time to realize, what's happening. I mean, I've been in the coaching industry for 20 years and I'm pretty honest about the reason why that is. I'm in the coaching industry because everybody needs a other income so that they can because they need more money for real estate. And everybody has a main hustle, and then everybody has a portfolio, and I'm exactly the same way. Every 6 months for the last 20 years, I've put on an event, grabbed a big ballroom, got 400, 500 people in a room, and taken clients from that and helped them with their portfolio and with their investing. At the end of the last boom, we started seeing people come in who already had $10 million in cash. So that influx of cash and interesting people was very late to the piece.
Yeah.
And I think that the warm-up will be very late to the piece as well. But I think that it's coming. Yeah. And those that are stuck to their knitting, stayed in their lane, will be prepared for that and will capitalize off that quite nicely.
Yeah.
Speaking of those with $10 million, we assume all foreign buyers have $10 million, whether it's true or not. Obviously, the government has implemented some restrictions on foreign buyers.
Yep.
I'd just be keen to get your take on whether it's had the impact they thought it would have.
You're not going to like this one. I think the foreign buyer ban and the proposed impact from that is the second biggest fallacy in New Zealand property after meth testing. What was the big deal with meth testing? And now it's it's a whole industry turned up and then totally disappeared.
Yeah.
Foreign buyers, I think there was quite a lot of racism in that, honestly. I think that somebody got beaten at a barfoot auction in South Auckland by somebody who didn't look like they were from South Auckland originally. And everybody got their, butt out of place. And then they banned foreign buyers and the market didn't spring back.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that it hurt New Zealand because I think that there's a lot of foreign money out there that we should have encouraged to buy higher price product in New Zealand. And then we could have developed higher price product in this country.
Yeah. I always find that, the proof is in the pudding. And when the ban came in, house prices didn't drop.
Nothing changed. Nothing really
They just kept
changed.
on going up.
It was
Yeah.
storm in a teacup time, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. And while not just specifically about property, I saw an OECD report come out the other day saying that New Zealand is sitting 34 out of 34 as the least attractive place out of any OECD country for foreigners to invest. And while property won't be that in isolation, that will be part of the story, right?
Yeah.
And it's not only, some of the most famous investors in the world trying to get a big piece of Wanaka or something, but it's apartments in central Auckland that should be $6-7 million worth of apartments that developers aren't taking the risk of building because there's no foreign money coming in to buy them.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, when we were down in Queenstown and the real estate agent was pointing out, so these were like $10-20 million houses, and they were pointing out the roles and the businesses people had around the world. That was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And you go, we're actively turning these people away, and imagine the impact they could have on New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
If they decided they really wanted to make a mark.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Dubai's not turning them away.
No.
Nowhere else in the world's turning that money away.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I actually, that was quite interesting because the other thing is, they come here, they bring their families, they might only be here for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, maybe they live here for a bit, but it's that money multiplier. Even if it's not their direct investment of I'm investing into a business or buying something, literally just the money multiplier that they bring in because they spend. And they got to keep the economy going around.
And those guys aren't stopping our kids from buying their first home.
No,
That's just not.
Yeah.
That's not the dynamic.
Yeah, they're not competing with you
No.
for a 2-bedroom townhouse in Avondale.
No,
Yeah,
no,
Yeah.
little doer upper and potty doer.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's not. It's not the problem. No.
So if you could make a change with foreign buyers rules, what would you do?
Encourage the big money to come into town. The big development money, and also allow that to happen. I just don't think the foreign buyer thing really was as much of an issue. I think it was political football that was useful at the time to get people elected. Where was the big change? I wouldn't do too much to it now, apart from maybe encouraging some of this money to come back into New Zealand.
Yeah.
I mean, post-COVID, we did very, very badly at opening the borders back up and encouraging the world back here. We don't have the foreign students, for instance, at the bottom of the market filling up the student flats that we used to. We need all of that to come back.
Yeah, I always find it interesting. Like, we don't have planes that can get us to another country or get our government officials to another country reliably and on time without breaking down. I'm like, most of our government officials should never be in the country. They should be out there selling the brand to everyone around the world. We're a tiny island nation on the corner of the world who relies very heavily on trade. And I find it absolutely astonishing that we can't just fly people somewhere to do a meeting and come back.
Oh, fiscal policy and controls like that are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let the economy. Let it do its thing.
Yeah. I mean, so coming back to that foreign buyers, just one last question for you. Surely that's a advantage for the average Kiwi investor. If we've taken people out of the market that weren't having a huge impact in the first place, does that mean it's a greater opportunity for the everyday Kiwi to pick up some more stock?
I think the best opportunity for everyday Kiwi is to have a decent, healthy property boom and have heaps of cash rolling around so that, developers develop, people start buying and selling and making things happen. Contentious opinion there again. Do we have a shortage of real estate in this country now?
Yeah.
Do you think we actually do or not? I'm sorry, but if you jump on TradeMe right now, we're in central Auckland here. You go South Auckland, 2-bedroom townhouse, have a look at how many photos of them are brand spanking new with staging furniture in and never been lived in.
Yeah.
Do we have an undersupply of housing? Because if we have a severe undersupply of housing and there's people living in garages, then absolutely let's look at foreign buyer bans. I don't think we're there anymore.
Yeah. I agree.
So the question would be then for those that are going, nah, I've been told that there's not enough houses, it's not fair, and foreign buyers have been stealing my houses. Why is Auckland in particular such an expensive place to own real estate in New Zealand?
Well, how much do you think of that expense as compliance? I mean, there's a system there. There's a really great guy on TikTok called Brent, and he's a QS, and he figures out exactly where all the money goes. Amazing. You've got to look for that guy. And he was looking at it going, what percentage of every townhouse in Auckland is not land or building?
Yeah.
And it's 50%.
That's insane.
The new compliance for every title in Auckland City is going to be about $170,000. Where is all that money going? I mean, how many road cones do you guys need?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
That's incredible. I would love to see that compared to
Other places
the
around the
global
world.
average. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, Steve, if we were getting premium service for that from the local council, okay, fine, I'd understand it. But the bridge has fallen down, the roads are potholes. Like, I'm like, wait, where's the money?
The hospitals, schools, like find any metric.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. If that money was going somewhere useful, you look at your rates. Look what's happening.
If this was a Nordic country and you had first class healthcare, first class roads, first class everything, you pay high tax. Okay, all right, fine. But we don't have it.
Well, look, not to make too big a thing of it, but I mean, I feel your pain. I entirely do. But equally, I live in Wellington. We can't even get the plumbing to work properly. And
literally.
That's just 40 years of underinvestment.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were if we were Australia, they're pre-planning their suburbs 20 years in advance.
Yeah.
We need to take a strong, hard look at ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is why I will be in real estate for the rest of my life and for the rest of my children's lives.
Yeah.
Because we can't fix the problem in our lifetime, which makes old houses worth more progressively.
Yeah.
For a second there, I thought you were like, that's why I'm announcing that I'm running 2025.
No, I'm not really that sort of people person. I think I'd get too stroppy for it.
Me and you both.
Yeah. Not with your background, Mike. We're keeping you away from politics.
Search, he's
Yeah,
out.
that too many skeletons dancing in that closet.
Yeah. I mean, so speaking of councils and governments, do you see any changes in 2025 to the property market in terms of legislation changes?
Not legislatively. Like I think the Jacinda government made a lot of very, very brash changes. If you look at what John Key did with LVR restrictions, he had a dial that went to 13 and he went to 1 or 2 and then he waited to see how this would react. And the Jacinda government, instead of like turning the dial a little bit and seeing how that impacted on the marketplace, they just flicked it like a light switch. Let's get rid of tax deductibility. Let's do this, do that, do the other. And I think we've now got the hangover from that. We've now got the actual serious response to how that worked.
Yeah.
And some of that was tax non-deductibility created a boom in new house building, which created an oversupply. And we're going to have that for another generation or so.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but like I know I give it a bit of grief, but I'm not buying shoebox 2 bedrooms at the moment because I think it's going to take so long for that value to recover.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would you do that instead of buying, I refer to them as burial houses. We've all got, mum's older friend who's got this like 2-bedroom house on 800 square meters in Auckland somewhere, right?
Yeah. It's got a massive lemon tree out the back. Yeah.
And that's what you would want to buy now because it's the land that's worth something.
Yeah, I agree.
Not the house.
Yeah, very interesting. Steve, just before we wrap up, if there's somebody out there who is going, I'm interested in property, I have no idea where to start, how do they get in touch with you?
I've got a pretty large page on Facebook. We've got about 60,000 people following us on Facebook now. I do a little bit of Instagram stuff as well, and I do events every year for as little as sort of $30-$40. Twice a year, we put on a large-scale property investment event. Everybody's more than welcome to come along. And as previously mentioned, I haven't said this anywhere publicly, I'm actually writing a book as well.
Yeah.
And so by the middle of next year, you should be able to run into Whitcoulls and buy a silly book with his face on it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. And what's the name of the Facebook page?
Steve Goodey, Property Coach.
Awesome. Well, Steve, thank you very much for finding time to come and have a chat to us. One of my favorite things you said was, if you're focusing on what's happening in 2025, you're gambling, you're not investing. I love that line.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much to Partners Life for sponsoring this episode. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, give us a review, give us a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.